Hello language learners! Do you want to know exactly how I teach my clients to learn a language independently? In this video, I'm going to share my proven step-by-step framework that I use to not only teach my clients how to learn a language, but how I taught myself how to learn any language at any time. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell to be notified every time I post a new video about language learning strategies, resources, and more. I have worked with countless struggling language learners who are frustrated, stuck, overwhelmed in their language learning, and they just want a logical path forward. This is the framework that has them and me going from frustrated and overwhelmed to confident and happy in their language learning. The first step, and the most important step that a lot of people ignore, is clearing your mindset, making sure that you have the right mindset to learn a language. Now, what does this look like? Now, a lot of us have a lot of limiting beliefs about language learning. A lot of us think that, we have inabilities to learn a language. Things like we're too old, we can't afford to travel abroad, we can't be immersed, we can't speak yet, all sorts of things. And all these limiting beliefs, they seem very, very small, but in reality, while those limiting beliefs are there, you're stuck. There's nothing that you can do. In order to truly progress and feel happy in your language learning, the first thing that you need to do is get rid of those negative mindsets, get rid of those limiting beliefs, and truly, genuinely believe that you can learn a language. No matter how perfect your language learning strategy is, no matter how expensive the app is, no matter how consistent you are with it, if you're not in the right mindset, then nothing is going to work nearly as well as you want it to work. Even the most logical, structurally sound language learning strategy is gonna fall on deaf ears if you don't truly believe that you can do it. Now, of course, this isn't just kind of like a switch that you can turn on and off in your brain. This is something that takes work, takes time, and it's not something that's gonna happen immediately. But the important thing is that you are starting the process before you move forward, that you see what you need to be doing and you're making movements and you're working towards that before you start working towards other things. Because if you are just like sitting in this negative mindset, then nothing is going to move you. You need to move out of your own way before you try to learn a language, or for that matter, before you try to accomplish anything that you don't genuinely believe you can accomplish. You need to convince yourself that you can do it. Once you clear your mindset, have a more productive, positive, healthy mindset, the second thing that you need to do is you need to set a goal. And this isn't learn a language, this isn't fluency. What we need to do is we need to throw those concepts away and don't worry about them, at least not for right now. The goal that you need to set is not just there for motivation and inspiration, making you feel good, but that goal also needs to give you a direction and kind of pull you in the direction that you want to go. You need to really think about what it is that you want to accomplish and then set a goal that reflects that. You basically want that goal to effectively draw you towards your goals, draw you towards your dreams and what you're trying to get out of language learning. So for example, with my Yiddish, if I set the goal of learn Yiddish or get fluent in Yiddish, then logically, okay, maybe I would start practicing having Yiddish conversations. But the thing is, I don't actually want to have a conversation in Yiddish, and that's totally fine. If my goal was to learn Yiddish and then I started trying to practice speaking Yiddish, I mean, sure, that makes sense. That, gets you closer to a goal, but it's not what I actually want to do. So when you have such a vague goal, it doesn't paint any picture of what it's going to look like when you accomplish your goal. Next step, after you clear your mindset and you set a goal, you need to think about where you are right now. Unless you have absolutely zero experience with learning the languages whatsoever, you're probably already closer to your goals than you think. You might already have some basic grammar that you learned in school. You might have some vocabulary, things like that. They might seem small and unimportant, but they can really give you a leg up to accomplish your goals. Not only that, but languages are so complex and nuanced and alive that there are so many things that nobody needs to learn. So in order to differentiate between what you want to learn and what you don't want to learn, you need to be laser focused on your great goal. Then think about what it is that you have already accomplished, what it is that you already know, and then you can make the connection between your point A and your point B. Then, once you have that point A to point B figured out, next thing is to pick your resources. Now that you know what it is that you want to accomplish, it's time to figure out what it is that you're using in order to accomplish that thing. It'll be easier now to choose resources that will actually benefit your language learning and not just picking some random resource that had a great ad. You can pick things like language apps, you can pick things like a conversational partner, you can pick things like movies, you can pick all sorts of things. You can even learn a new hobby in a foreign language. Whatever works for you, and now that you have a crystal clear idea of what it is that you want to accomplish, you can figure out what it is that you need to do in order to accomplish that thing. By now, you already have the skeleton of your language strategy. Now it's time to fill in little bits and pieces with, the bridge to get there from point A to point B. If you have learned something so far in this video, make sure you give me a like and then comment yes below in the comment section. Now, once you have your mindset and you have your goals, you know where you are, you know how to get there, now it's time to keep consistent. This will be easy some days, and some days this will not be easy. And consistency doesn't necessarily mean every single day, keep in mind. But now that you have a well thought out, deeply planned language learning strategy, it is your job to keep with it. You may have days where you don't feel like doing the work, or you have a bad day, or you're stressed out, or you're just busy, and all those things are totally valid. It is up to you to stay consistent over the long term, even when life gets crazy, because you know it will. Your job now is to make sure that you can recognize short-term distractions as distractions, and maybe even just emotions that don't have to have a long-term effect on your language learning. They don't have to change your strategy at all if they don't need to. If your strategy is working for you and you just have a couple of off days, it's your job to get right back to it when you can. When those distractions, when those busy days are over, it is your job to keep consistent in the long term and not let life derail you. The next step is to make sure that you are tracking. Now, tracking is really important for a lot of different things, especially in reference to the last point where you're keeping consistent over the long term. Tracking can help us see that we're being consistent even when we don't feel like we are. Even, for example, if we have to skip a day when we don't want to, and that can make us feel really, really bad, tracking can help us quiet those negative emotions and make us realize that we don't have to feel bad about our language learning because we've really done a lot better than we think. A lot of people don't realize that language learning is so subjective because, it's not tangible. It's in your brain. Everything is in your brain. So it's really easy to lose the perspective of I'm doing really great, I'm being really consistent, I'm sticking to what I said I was going to do. It is really easy to lose sight of that when we're having bad days, when we're stressed out, when we're tired. It's so easy for our brains to flip that and make us feel like we are terrible language learners and we haven't been consistent and there's something wrong with us. When we're tracking and we have data, we can completely disregard all that and remind ourselves of this cold hard data that proves those emotions wrong. The last step is to respond. Now this goes back to tracking. After you've been tracking for a little while, short-term, long-term tracking, you've got some good data. Once we have this data, we can use this to respond to our language learning strategies, which will change over time. And that can look like changing when, something is boring or something is too hard, something is overwhelming, or even when our skills grow. When our skills grow, that means our language learning strategy needs to shift and grow with it. When you have data from tracking consistently over time, you can see what parts of your language strategy worked for you in the past, but maybe don't work for you anymore. And you can see why they don't work. You can make logical conclusions about that and then respond logically to shift your language strategy to make you happy again. For example, if you've been playing around with, fairly easy resources because you're a beginner, and then all of a sudden you level up, your skills change, so you are no longer a beginner. Maybe if you're just like advanced beginner, but you're definitely not beginner anymore. You'll see that in your tracking, you'll see that in your data, and you'll be able to respond to it and shift your resources, something a little bit more difficult. Maybe you need to speed up the audio more. Maybe the content you're reading is a little too simple and you need some more intermediate grammatical points and concepts. Maybe you need to be having more conversations and not just talking to yourself. These are all things, these are all conclusions that we can make when we're tracking and watching the data over time and coming back to it, referring back to it when something just doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel good anymore, you're not feeling real progress. You can use that data to either reconfirm to yourself that you are making progress or make the logical decision to shift your strategy to something that makes more sense for you now. If you want to know more about how I teach my coaching clients exactly this, check the link in my bio for access to my free training where I walk you step by step through my entire framework and each individual lesson to show you how these lessons apply to frustrated language learners who want to accomplish their language goals and stay consistent and happy in the long run. And if you like this video, make sure you check out this video where I talk about how I apply this exact framework to my own language learning strategy personally every single day. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.